Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am going to do a video today that I have been wanting to do for quite a while. When I started my YouTube channel, it was because I really wanted to talk about how my life changed after I had a severe allergic reaction in 2014. And I have talked about a lot of things, but I haven't actually talked about what is wrong with me, what it's like to live with a chronic illness, what it's like to have an immune system that's broken. So today I've got my notes, I've got my journals, I've got my wine. I'm going to divide this video into two. So this first part is going to be about what happened, what it's like to go through a severe allergic reaction and how that changed things for me. And then the second part is going to be how I've managed to deal with it, how I'm healing and getting better. So without, and I also want to say that I know how boring it can be to watch a talking head. So I'm going to try and not embellish too much and just stick to the facts and the events, and hopefully I'll get through this in a reasonable amount of time. All right, without any further ado, let's get started. So I've been having allergic reactions pretty much all of my adult life. My first one was in my early 20s, right after I had had my wisdom tooth pulled, and I had decided that I would handle the pain with aspirin. And a couple of days in, I noticed that my ears were ringing. And they continued to ring until I had finally healed up and stopped taking the aspirin. So I kind of made a note, okay, aspirin equals tinnitus, not a good thing. The next time I had a reaction was in my mid-20s. I had had a UTI and I was drinking a lot of orange juice and cranberry juice, a lot of acidic fluids in an attempt to control the symptoms. And I broke out in these blisters. They were on my chest, in my mouth, along my lips. They looked awful, and when they burst, they were filled with a clear liquid that was highly acidic and very, very burning. Once I finally, it took a while to heal up, especially from the scars, and once I did, I stopped consuming anything that had any kind of citrus in it, oranges, lemons, or any highly acidic foods or beverages. So now let's jump to maybe 20 years later. Haven't had any citrus or anything like that, and I decided I was going to a birthday party and they were having key lime pie and I wanted to taste it. So I took a Benadryl and I ate a piece of pie and nothing happened. And then I ate an orange without any Benadryl at all, and I realized that I'm not allergic to citrus anymore, and indeed today I eat oranges and lemons and love all those things. So it is good to know that if we can stop exposing ourselves to whatever it is that is causing the allergic reaction, that the immune system can maybe heal and get past it. At least that's what seemed to have happened in my case. So in 1995, I moved to New York, and after being there for 5 or 6 years, I started, the tinnitus came back. And it was so loud and so uncomfortable, and I noticed that I lived in Queens and worked in Manhattan, and it was worse in Manhattan. In fact, when I would get home in the evenings, it would calm down a lot. I went to a doctor, and she said that I was, the tinnitus was a symptom of an allergy. I had severely blocked sinuses, and the tubes in my ears or whatever were blocked because of the pollution and the pollen and the various things in the air. She prescribed a decongestant, and lo and behold, no more tinnitus, no more issues. And I didn't have any more issues really until I moved back to California, which was in 2008, and the tinnitus returned after I'd been here for several, maybe 6 months or so. It came back, and no decongestant that I could take did anything about it. I went to an ENT, and he was like, I don't know, we don't know what causes it. And I told him what my doctor had told me before, and you know, he cleaned out my ears and prescribed another decongestant, and nothing happened. And it persisted. Tinnitus, in case you don't know, is like a ringing in the ears, and it's very distracting. It can be all-consuming. It can keep you awake at night. I have lain awake many a night because my ears, the ringing is so loud that I can't sleep. And a lot of, I guess, conventional medicine doesn't really know, quote unquote, what causes it. So there wasn't, you know, doctors didn't have a whole lot to offer me, especially since the decongestants weren't working. However, after struggling with that for almost a year, I had a period where my ears were relatively quiet, and I went to a movie, and I ordered some popcorn. And by the time I got out of the movie, my ears were just on fire. They were ringing so loud, they were drowning out the sound of my car when I was driving. And that's when I made the connection that it must be corn, it must be diet related. That's what's causing the sinus problems, and the sinus problems are causing the ear problems. And so I stopped eating corn. You know, and then I did a little research and realized that it wasn't just corn that I was eating, but it was corn derivatives as well. There are, I don't even know, maybe 70 different chemicals and additives, preservatives, and things like that that are made from corn. And any and all of these can cause an allergic reaction in the corn sensitive. And I realized that I cut out some of the derivatives because it's daunting. I mean, there were like all these different names of things that I'd never heard of: maltodextrin, xanthan gum, you know, forget about the normal stuff like cornstarch and corn syrup. So I cut out some, but I didn't cut out everything. However, I managed to go through several years of quiet doing that, just being very careful about. And I ate what you would consider a decent diet. I didn't eat a lot of packaged foods, for one thing, and I tried to just eat, you know, like vegetables and fruit and meats and breads and, you know, things that I could make myself. And that worked fairly well until March, and I went to my journal to find the entry. It was March 30th, 2014. I got up that morning, washed my hair, got dressed, and by the afternoon, my scalp was burning. According to this, it says my face, nostrils, mouth burning, my ears were ringing. It started shortly after I washed my hair. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that I needed to rewash my hair with something else. And so I went to the store. I got another different kind of shampoo that I've been wanting to try anyway, shampoo and conditioner, and the next day rewashed my hair, and it calmed the burning in my scalp. My scalp was still pretty sore, but the burning was much, much less. A couple of days later, I rewashed my hair again, and it definitely my scalp was much better. However, the rest of me was not. My face, my mouth, my throat, my skin. Anytime I would try and put anything on my skin other than water, it would burn. I went to the store and I got some basis soap. I had an aloe vera plant here at house, and I had been able to put that on my face without making the symptoms worse. So I bought some pure aloe vera, and I washed myself in that, and that was my moisturizer. And my skin was so dry and so painful that I was just miserable. I have a friend who is a dermatologist, bless his heart. Shout out to Lamar if you're watching. And he brought me some samples of lotion that should help, that was supposed to help. And it did help for the first few days. It didn't burn everything, and it gave me enough moisture in my skin that my skin just wasn't hurting from being so dry. But after a couple of days, it would burn on contact, and I would have to wash it off. any kind of hypoallergenic lotion that I could find in the house, I would have to wash off. I was putting coconut oil on and that burned and I had to wash that off. So I was pretty miserable. Pretty miserable. Okay, so this went on for quite a while, and the most frustrating part about this whole thing was that I couldn't eat anything. I would put a piece of chicken or take a bite of chicken or a tomato or a banana, something, and my mouth would burn. I didn't know what I could eat that wouldn't stop my mouth burning. I tried to make sure that I was eating only organic, and I couldn't do an elimination diet because there wasn't a food that I was able to live on that didn't burn my mouth to a lesser or greater degree. I think the lowest point was when I would spend an hour and a half making myself something that I thought would be safe to eat, that would be okay, and I would take one bite and I still wouldn't be able to eat it. I was living on, at that point, peanut butter, these Think Thin bars. They were made out of coconut. They were like a coconut and chocolate bar. They've been discontinued long since, of course. And occasionally I could have a little bit of applesauce. But otherwise, those were sort of the reliable foods. If all else failed, I could eat a Think Thin bar, and at least I was getting some sort of nutrition, or eat a little peanut butter, maybe with a little honey. So it was very frustrating. I mean, I obviously I couldn't go on too long without seeing a doctor, and I did. I went to a doctor, and he sent me to an allergist who tested me. In fact, I saw an allergist and an ENT, and they both tested me, and they found out that I was allergic to 2 different kinds of mold. The allergy tests that I had were IgE tests, which is a test that basically tests you for sort of the anaphylactic or the traditional reaction to what you think of when you have an allergy. So like sneezing or, like I said, an anaphylaxis type of situation. They discovered that I had high-level antibodies for Alternaria alterna and Aspergillus fumigatus. These are 2 different kinds of mold, and I did not have IgG or IgE test or IgM testing done, which is the traditional tests that are given if a food intolerance is suspected. Not sure why. I think basically the doctors that I went to just didn't do those type of tests. The first doctor, the first allergist that I went to had said that if I was allergic to anything, the prescriptions that he gave me would take care of it. And I said, well, yeah, but what if I'm allergic to some ingredient, some extra ingredient in the prescription medicine? And he said, like what? And I said, corn, or maybe corn derivatives, and he said, no, you can't be allergic to corn. Corn is in everything. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, it is, and if I could not be allergic to it, I would be really, really happy. Nevertheless, tell it to my immune system. That's what led me to the second doctor, who was very sympathetic, but basically, offered me nothing except more medicine. And the prescriptions that I had, I tried, and they just made it worse. They made the burning worse the minute that I would, take them. So, I want to tell you a little bit about these 2 different types of mold so that you know kind of what I'm faced with. The Alternaria mold spores are detected from spring to fall, and their highest concentrations are during like a windy day when they're blown around in the air. They grow on any kind of organic matter, outside and inside the environment. So food, plants, soil, paper they can grow on. They can even grow on polyurethane and jet fuel. A sensitivity to this kind of mold can lead to severe and fatal asthma, something to look forward to. And it's an opportunistic pathogen that can also cause skin diseases in people that are immunocompromised. It's not fun. I'll just say that. It's not fun being allergic to something like that. The other thing, the other type of mold that I'm allergic to is called Aspergillus fumigatus. This is ubiquitous. It grows on anything. It's usually higher, the spores are usually higher inside the house than outside the house. This particular type of mold produces mycotoxins that can cause diseases ranging from lung diseases to cancer. And the spores are easily inhaled and are hard to filter out by the lungs. And so let's say that you vacuum in the house, that'll kick up the spores into the air. So you have to be careful. The bottom line is that both of these molds are impossible to avoid. I can't ever get to ground zero. There's no place on the earth that has life, that can support life, that cannot support these two different kinds of molds and bacteria. However, I knew that the tinnitus in the past had been linked to corn, so I decided to at least control that. I did a lot more research. I looked at every kind of corn derivative, where it was found, how I was being exposed, and I realized that I was being exposed in ways that I didn't even know. I had no idea. Fruits and vegetables that you buy in the grocery store can be washed in something called citric acid, which I've talked about before, which is a double whammy for me because citric acid is mold grown on corn syrup. So I get it, it's two ways. I really have to, be careful about that. And it's in so many different things that the avoidance is difficult. It's very difficult to avoid citric acid. It's very difficult to avoid all types of corn, actually. But I was able to bring the tinnitus under control. I've been able to put together, like 2 or 3 days, even weeks of quietness. The burning, since I've changed where I buy my foods, I changed where I shop, I've found that the burning has gone away, and it only comes up if I make a mistake. In September, I went to a friend's birthday party, and I wanted to just taste the birthday cake. Big mistake. The minute I put a small bite of it in my mouth, it started burning. So, but for the most part, I'm burn-free, and tinnitus depends on the day. Right now, today, my ears are quiet, and they've been ever since I got out of the shower this morning, because they were ringing before. So let me come to my last and final doctor, because this is the doctor that finally gave me a diagnosis. He said he's a family doctor, and apparently he has other patients that have that are in similar situations to me. He said that I have a hypervigilant immune system, and that I have multiple chemical sensitivities. This is the first time that someone actually had told me something that I could wrap my little brain around, because once I had a diagnosis, then I knew that I could figure out, I could at least know what I was up against, and I knew that I could figure out a way to fight it. He gave me a few guidelines on how to cope with this, and he said that as far as medicine, there was nothing that he could really offer me, that I was going to have to do a lot of this myself, and that he would be there for advice or any kinds of questions that I might have as I went through this process. So he also said that I was already on the right path, because at that point, like I said, I was cleaned up my sources of food a lot. And that it was just up to me to fully commit and go the whole way, which I did. So that brings us to the end of part 1. Part 2 is going to talk about what I actually did, how I made the changes, and how I'm feeling now, and how it's, how it is to actually sort of live with a situation where you have hypervigilant immune system, corn sensitivity, corn derivative sensitivity, and multiple chemical sensitivities. Thank you for staying with me today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and week, and I so appreciate you being there. And I want to say hello to new subscribers. I've been getting some new subscribers, so thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon.